At this point in the season, you should have a good idea if you are a legitimate contender or not in Dynasty. If you don't know, you're probably not. But that's not the point of this video. Today we're going to talk about running back trade value, specifically guys that you can go out and add in your Dynasty leagues that aren't necessarily the very obvious names, right? The CMCs, the Breece Halls, the Jonathan Taylors, you know the bunch. So we're looking at the other running backs that should be able to help bring you value either this season or long-term on a contending roster. Let's just start it off with Josh Jacobs. I think he's a good one to look at here because there's a ton of change now happening in Las Vegas, right? Head coach, GM, offensive coordinator, all gone. Even starting quarterback, also not gone, but benched. So they're now moving forward with Aiden O'Connell. And for a guy that was the RB17 in points per game, seeing over 22 opportunities per game, I view this as a positive. Because again, he has all of the opportunity. He has every chance to be good. But that offense was just terrible. In basically every single manner, it was bad. I think an offensive coordinator change is going to be a positive. So that means, what is the value of Josh Jacobs, who's going to be 26 years old next year? He is going to be a free agent. What does this look like? What should you be giving up in Dynasty? For me, if I'm a contending team, I'm okay giving up a late first round pick, right? If I'm giving up my pick and I'm a legitimate contender, that's going to be a late pick. I think in the 2024 first round, when you get to the end of it, Josh Jacobs is going to bring you more value this season, probably next season, than a lot of the guys you're going to find at the end of the first. And Josh Jacobs is a known talent. He is known to get opportunity. It's not necessarily a wild card rookie. Again, if you're contending, Jacobs means more to your team. If you don't want to give up a 2024 first, again, a late 2024 first, you could also pivot and give up really any 2025 first plus a second, plus a young wide receiver like a Rashee Rice, a Marvin Mims. I think that is going to be the going rate if you're giving up future firsts. And even that, honestly, might be a little bit light. You may have to shoot higher. And if you want to give up a wide receiver, right, you don't want to give up picks at all. You just want to give up wide receiver for running back. I think the fair value is probably a guy like Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman is talented, but he is not a world beater, right? I am a Michael Pittman fan, but he's not a guy that is a top 12 wide receiver in Dynasty. He's not a top 12 fantasy wide receiver. So Michael Pittman feels about the line for talent if you're just trying to make a clean swap for wide receiver to running back. Now, shifting gears, looking at another running back that I think is about to hit free agency next season, let's look at Tony Pollard. Currently, the RB16 in points per game. He's 27 years old next year, so 1 year older than Josh Jacobs, and he's averaging roughly 19 opportunities per game. Tony Pollard has been underwhelming this season. I am extremely disappointed considering what we saw last year. If you watch him, it looks like he has aged 3 or 4 years. It looks like he went 26 and actually turned 30. Tony Pollard is missing the burst. All of the skill set that made him so dynamic last season just hasn't appeared. I think he looks worse than Josh Jacobs because that Dallas offense has been solid, right? Dallas has been pretty damn good for a lot of this year, whereas Josh Jacobs is playing on a bad team. So him underperforming necessarily isn't as much of a red flag, where Tony Pollard is now going to work in an offense that isn't making changes, that is just kind of chugging along successfully, even without him being, a smash play for fantasy or even in the real life NFL scenario. So with that being said, what does the cost look like for Tony Pollard? Well, I think it's less than Josh Jacobs. I understand they're both hitting free agency, but he has an extra year of tread on him. I think he looks worse than Josh Jacobs does this year, given the situation. With Jacobs, I'm willing to give like a mid to late first. Tony Pollard is a late first, and I am talking he is like the last piece on a championship team because I just don't have an RB2. A pick that I think will be, 12, like 112 in my draft. That is how sure I have to be to go out and give up a first for Tony Pollard right now. If I don't want to give up a first and I want to give up a wide receiver, I think George Pickens is about the line. To me, he's worse than Michael Pittman as a fantasy asset because Pittman's just a better player. But Pickens has flashed a ton of upside, but we've also seen a crippling floor. So I think there is some leeway with George Pickens, right? I think he's been very good without Deontay, but struggled with Deontay back. So who knows what you really have in him. Now, getting into another aging running back, let's talk about Derrick Henry, right? 29 years old. Going to be 30 soon. The RB 14 in points per game, 19 opportunities per game. A lot of good, but also if you watch him, Derrick Henry is not the same Derrick Henry right? The end is coming. For the first time, it feels like we can watch him and say he is slowing down. Now, we could watch this back in a couple of weeks and say, well, that was stupid because it's winter now and Derrick Henry just demolishes people when it gets cold out. That's a possibility. The playoff schedule is great. He gets Houston twice in the playoffs, but ultimately, again, the question is, what do you give up for Derrick Henry, given his age, given the production this year, given the slowing down, all of that? Well, I'm not giving up a first. I'm just not giving up a first-round pick in any year for a 29-year-old running back. I don't like giving up firsts for players I don't think are 2 to 3 year assets. Ideally, 3-year assets. Derrick Henry just simply is not that at this stage in his career. Now, I'm happy to give up like a second plus. Multiple seconds, a second and a wide receiver. Throw out again a name like Marvin Mims, a name like Jalen Hyatt if somebody wants him, Sky Moore. Those kind of underwhelming rookie wide receivers, second-year guys that I think are going to flame out pretty quickly. And if I want to give up just a wide receiver, at this point, I'm willing to give up Jerry Jeudy. And it hurts because preseason I was not there with Jerry Jeudy, but he has just underperformed at every level. He did not get traded. He's going to hit free agency, so that is also a wild card for him. Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, a lot of players in that tier. I think those are the wide receivers you give up for Derrick Henry, and just hope he continues this RB14 production. Let's look at another aging running back over 30 that I think is shocking people, and that's going to be Raheem Mostert. The RB5 right now in points per game. He's only seeing, though, 15 opportunities per game. Devon Achane is going to be coming back soon. Obviously, if you roster him and are a contender, you're holding him. But if you're not contending, you need to be moving Raheem Mostert. Again, he is 31 years old. We keep saying this is the end of Raheem Mostert, but this really does feel like it should be the end of Raheem Mostert. So what can you expect back, and what should you be giving up to get him? Well, to me, it's a late 24 second. Honestly, ideally, I'd prefer to give up a third, maybe 2/3. I think that's fine because, again, he is a rental. Like, he is at this point, if you're buying, he could be an 8-game rental. I'm not giving up much more than that, even if he could be potentially the missing piece. Because the part of this that's terrifying is Devon Achane's coming back. We just mentioned that. Like, if he comes back and kind of reasserts himself, we could see Mostert kind of fade come fantasy playoffs. So I'm not going to get over leveraged on him. I'm not going to pay up for a guy that's producing as RB5 because I don't think that's going to stick throughout the season. And after this year, who the hell knows what you get with him. Now, if I'm looking for players specifically, I think you could go and send Raheem Mostert for Roschon Johnson or Tajay Spears to teams that are contending, because if they're serious about winning, Raheem Mostert does give them a significantly better chance than Spears or Roschon Johnson does. So you may be able to kind of steal them away and look to the future and buy a couple years back with two players that could ascend in 2024. And to close us out, there's David Montgomery, who should be coming back off of IR soon. The big question now is, what is his role now that Jahmyr Gibbs has sort of become Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Prior to the injury, he is the RB8 in points per game. And then Jahmyr Gibbs has two big games, two massive games, basically showing he is a do-it-all running back that is capable of being an absolute difference maker, a star, everything they drafted him to be. When Montgomery comes back, what the hell happens? I think, admittedly, he's not going to get back his entire role. I don't think he gets as much work, but he's still going to dominate inside the 10, inside the 5, right, where he makes his money, basically. And I'm damn sure Dan Campbell isn't suddenly going to say, Montgomery, you were so great at this, we're just not going to give that piece of the job back to you. But I think if you're hoping for RB8 production, or, top 12 production, you're going to be disappointed. So we have to factor that into cost here. And honestly, I'm not paying a first for David Montgomery. I've seen a lot of people ask for that. I don't think that's a reasonable price. I think if you're looking in picks, a 24 second plus is about the line. Maybe two 2024 seconds, a 2024 and a 2025 second. I think that's where you should try to target. I don't know if you can pry him away from a non-contending roster at that price, but that's what I'm comfortable with. Or if you want to look at like a wide receiver, you could look for like a Christian Kirk. I think Montgomery plus a third for Christian Kirk, Montgomery plus a second for Christian Kirk, or guys in that tier would make a lot of sense. All right, guys, that is all I have for you. Again, if you have questions, you have comments, you guys want advice on these trades, drop them down below. Also, if you're looking for more content from the DLF team, check out the YouTube membership underneath the bonus content tier. You're going to get extra videos every single week. You're going to get extensions of a lot of videos as well. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.